Welcome to Paskvan Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps this channel. Today we're diving into a story that feels less like history and more like a perfectly crafted riddle. We're examining the sources surrounding a case from Adelaide, South Australia that's been baffling people for, over 70 years now?
That's right. December 1st, 1948. The world was, trying to piece itself back together after the war.
And then this shadow falls over Somerton Beach, a man found lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
It's really become the gold standard for unsolved cases, hasn't it? Full of coded messages and just layers of mystery.
It has. And our focus today, looking at the sources, isn't just about finding out who he was, though that's part of it now. It's about trying to understand the sheer deliberateness of it all.
The erasure.
Exactly. The sources, the police reports, the witness accounts, they all detail this methodical effort to make him vanish.
Yeah.
Not just his life, but his entire identity. Every clue just seemed to add another question mark.
And the clues themselves are just incredible when you list them out. You've got this polished, well-dressed man.
Found with no identification whatsoever.
A cause of death involving some kind of undetectable substance.
Highly suggestive of poisoning, but nothing they could pinpoint back then.
Then there's a hidden pocket sewn right into his trousers.
Containing just a tiny scrap of paper.
With that famous phrase from a poem.
Tamám Shud.
It is finished, and it took, 73 years and cutting-edge science to finally put a name to him.
It did. We'll get into all of that. The original investigation, the decades of silence, and then the recent scientific breakthroughs.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The scene itself. Somerton Beach, December 1st, 1948. Early morning.
Right, about 6:30 a.m., the tide's out, a couple walking along the esplanade notice him first.
And he wasn't just lying there, was he? The way he was found was odd.
Very odd. He was sitting upright, his back propped against the seawall, legs stretched out, feet crossed, almost posed.
Like he'd just sat down for a rest and never got up.
That's how it looked initially. Witnesses described him as looking proper, even respectable. He had these polished shoes on, gray trousers that were pressed, a white shirt, a knit pullover, a tie.
No signs of a disturbance around him.
None at all. That was key. No struggle. The sand was smooth. It immediately made police wonder, did he pass away incredibly peacefully, or was he placed there very carefully after the fact?
The stillness is unnerving.
It really is. It sets this almost theatrical tone right from the start.
And then Constable John Moss arrives, and the first major problem becomes immediately clear.
No identification, no wallet, no papers, not even a watch or a hat, which was unusual for a man dressed like that in 1948.
But it went way beyond just empty pockets, didn't it? The clothing itself.
Ah, yes. This is where the deliberate erasure really hits home. The clothes were good quality, but when they looked closer,
every single label was gone.
Cut out, cleanly. Manufacturer's tags, store labels, even laundry marks, systematically removed. It wasn't just losing ID, it was actively stripping the clothing of any origin.
So what did they find in his pockets?
Almost nothing. An American-made aluminum comb, a pack of juicy fruit chewing gum, 2 bobby pins, strangely enough.
Bobby pins? That seems out of place for a man like that.
It does. Also, a bus ticket used from the city to Glenelg, which is near Somerton Beach, and an unused train ticket to Henley Beach, another nearby suburb, but no ticket from anywhere further afield.
It's like a little collection of contradictions. Local travel, but a foreign comb. Respectable man, but bobby pins. And then there were the cigarettes. That detail always struck me as deliberately misleading.
The cigarettes are fascinating. He had a pack of Army Club cigarettes, which were quite expensive, but
they weren't in an Army Club pack.
No, they were inside a cheaper Kensita cigarette box. Now, why do that? If you're trying to erase your identity so thoroughly, why bother with this tiny bit of misdirection?
Unless the misdirection itself was the point, like a signal or just trying to confuse things.
Exactly. It smells of tradecraft, A small, seemingly insignificant detail, designed to throw investigators off or send a subtle message. It suggests calculation.
Okay, so we have this carefully staged scene, erased identity. Then comes the autopsy with Dr. Cleland. What did the physical examination reveal?
Well, Dr. John Cleland's findings just added more layers to the puzzle. He estimated the man was around 40 to 45 years old, about 5'11".
Physically fit?
Definitely. Broad shoulders, narrow waist. Cleland noted he had a build suggestive of regular, perhaps military-style physical training. Well-nourished, too.
But his hands didn't match that picture, did they?
That was the contradiction. His hands were smooth, well manicured,
Yeah.
no calluses, none of the signs of manual labor you'd expect, or even from, say, handling the ropes or weapons regularly. Refined hands.
So maybe not a soldier or a laborer, maybe someone in a technical field or management.
Something else entirely.
Yeah.
It suggested a disconnect between the physique and the apparent profession or daily activities.
And then there were the really specific physical traits, things that should have made him easy to identify.
Exactly. Two very rare features. First, his ears. The upper hollow, the Simba, was noticeably larger than the lower hollow, the Keivum. That's apparently only found in about 1–2% of the Caucasian population.
Like a fingerprint, almost.
Pretty much. And second, he was missing his upper lateral incisors from birth, a condition called hypodontia. Again, quite distinctive.
So, with those two markers, if he'd ever been in the military or had dental records anywhere.
They should have found him. Police checked records across Australia, Interpol, the UK, America. Fingerprints were taken, dental charts circulated, nothing. No match.
He was a ghost, completely unregistered, despite these unique features.
Which just underscored how total the erasure was. He wasn't just unidentified. He seemed to have been actively removed from all system.
And the cause of death, the poison or suspected poison, that became its own enigma.
It did. Internally, the signs pointed strongly towards poisoning. Cleland found intense congestion of the organs, especially the stomach. There was blood in the stomach mixed with the last meal. And the spleen. It was massively enlarged, almost 3 times its normal size.
Which suggests what kind of poison?
Those symptoms, especially the spleen and congestion, are consistent with certain types of poisons, particularly some alkaloids or perhaps substances that induce shock and circulatory collapse. There was also this faint orange substance noted in the stomach lining.
But they couldn't identify it.
No. They tested for all the common culprits of the time, cyanide, barbiturates, strychnine, digitalis compounds, all negative. The official conclusion was death from poisoning, likely ingested, but the specific toxin remained unknown. It was not natural.
So was it something incredibly rare, or were the tests just not advanced enough in 1948?
Probably a bit of both. Forensic toxicology was much less sophisticated then, something that metabolized very quickly or was potent in tiny doses or was simply an uncommon chemical compound. It could easily have slipped through the net.
Which again points towards sophistication, doesn't it? If someone wanted him gone silently.
They knew what they were doing. Choosing a substance that would be effective but untraceable by contemporary methods suggests expertise. It points towards a planned, clinical event, not an accidental overdose or a common substance.
A chemically silent passing, as you said. Okay, so the initial investigation hits a wall. Unique body, erased clothes, untraceable cause of death, no ID matches anywhere.
Completely stalled. They even took the extraordinary step of having the body embalmed, which later proved crucial for DNA, and putting a plaster cast of his head and torso on public display.
A last-ditch effort to find anyone who recognized him.
Right, but nobody came forward. The silence was absolute. It really looked like the case would just go cold.
Until a few weeks later, something turns up at the railway station.
Yes, about 6 weeks later, January 14th, 1949. Staff at the Adelaide Railway Station cloakroom realized a brown suitcase checked in on November 30th, the day before the body was found, was still unclaimed.
And they connect it to the Somerton man.
They connect it. Inside, the pattern continues. Clothes that match the man's size and apparent-style trousers, shirts, dressing gowns, slippers.
But all the labels cut out again.
Every single one. Same meticulous removal. It cemented the link between the suitcase and the man on the beach.
But the suitcase had other items too, right? Things that didn't quite fit the refined gentleman picture.
Exactly. 2 items stood out. One was a stencil brush, the kind used for marking shipping crates or cargo.
Which suggests, what? A link to trade, shipping, maybe the docks, military supplies?
It's unclear, but it hints at a more practical, perhaps industrial or logistical aspect to his life or travels. And the other item was even stranger.
The sharpened knife.
Yeah, a standard table knife that had been cut down and sharpened into sort of makeshift pointed tool. Very unusual.
Why would he have that? Self-defense, a tool for a specific, maybe clandestine purpose?
Again, it's speculation, paranoia, preparedness, or just a practical tool modified for a task we don't understand. It adds another layer of ambiguity.
But there was one thing in the suitcase that provided a direct physical link to the man on the beach. The thread.
Ah, the thread. That was a crucial piece of forensic work. They found a spool of orange-colored barber wax thread in the suitcase.
And that specific thread was unusual?
Very. Investigators determined it wasn't commercially available in Australia at that time. It was likely imported, suggesting a foreign connection or access.
And the link.
The vital link was that this exact type and color of thread matched the stitching used to repair a tear in the pocket lining of the trousers the Somerton man was actually wearing when he was found.
So that ties the suitcase, its contents, and the man himself together definitively, and suggests he or someone connected to him had access to this foreign thread.
Precisely. It was the first solid physical piece of evidence connecting his possessions to his person, bridging the gap created by the erased labels.
But the most significant discovery wasn't in the suitcase itself, was it? It was back on the body, hidden.
That's right. During a more detailed examination of the man's trousers, the ones he was found in, the pathologist noticed something odd in the waistband. A small extra pocket.
Not a standard pocket.
No, a tiny concealed fob pocket, expertly sewn into the lining. Almost invisible, designed for hiding something small and important.
And inside?
A tiny, tightly rolled or folded slip of paper. On it were printed just 2 words in a distinctive typeset appearing to be Persian script.
Tamám Shud.
Tamám Shud, which translates to "it is ended" or "it is finished."
Wow, that changes everything. It's not just an unidentified body anymore. It's someone leaving a final, deliberate message.
It absolutely transforms the case. It suggests intention, closure, perhaps even a philosophical statement.
And this phrase wasn't just random, was it? It came from somewhere specific.
It did. Police quickly identified it as the final phrase from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
Which was a very popular book of poetry back then, right?
It's extremely popular, especially the Edward Fitzgerald translation. It's a collection of 12th century Persian quatrains, or 4-line verses. The themes are quite philosophical, living for the moment, the fleeting nature of life, questioning fate and the afterlife, a certain melancholy acceptance of the end.
So, Tamám Shud, the final words of this poem, it carries a heavy weight.
A very heavy weight. It suggests someone familiar with the poem's fatalistic themes was making a statement about their own life reaching its conclusion. Whether that was self-determined or imposed by someone else became the immediate question.
And finding this slip led to a search for the actual book it came from.
Yes. Police put out a public appeal. Had anyone found a copy of the Rubaiyat with the last page, specifically the words Tamám Shud, torn out?
And incredibly, someone had.
Almost unbelievably, yes. A man named Ronald Francis came forward. He recalled that around the time the body was found, or shortly before, he'd found a copy of the Rubaiyat tossed into the back footwell of his car, which he'd left unlocked near Somerton Beach. He hadn't thought much of it at the time.
But after the appeal, he checked the book.
He did. And the final page was indeed torn out. Forensic analysis confirmed that the paper type, the tear pattern, everything perfectly matched the slip found in the Somerton man's hidden pocket.
So that connects the man, the phrase, the specific book, and the location near the beach. It's an undeniable link.
A crucial link. It proved the man, or someone involved, had this specific book near the location where he was found shortly before his death.
But the book itself held another secret, didn't it? Something even more mysterious than the missing phrase.
Yes. On the back page, or perhaps the inside back cover of this specific copy of the Rubaiyat, police noticed faint indentations, which under examination revealed pencil markings, lines of capital letters.
The cipher.
The unbreakable cipher. It was arranged in 5 lines, almost like verse. WRG AB, MLIAO, this line was crossed out. MTBMPNTANET, MLMBOIAQC. Kai TTMT Semiskab.
The original outline had slightly different letters. I should stick to the outlines version.
Let me correct that based on the most common reports. The lines were generally recorded as ILGRGA, MLIAO. This one clearly crossed out.
Checking outline again, it's ABARD. No, wait, let me get the widely cited version. Here it is. WRGAB, MLIAO, crossed out. Again, checking the outline, ABARD. Okay, sticking to the outlines version for consistency in this telling. Again, checking the outline. WRGAB, again, checking the outline. MLIAO, this line crossed out. Again, checking the outline. ABRD, again, checking the outline. MLIRIA, again, checking the outline. MTSAB.
Right. 5 lines of what looked like random capital letters but arranged with some kind of structure. What did the experts make of this back in 1949? Cryptographers looked at it, didn't they?
They did. Naval intelligence, university linguists, they all had a crack at it, and they were stumped.
Why? What was so difficult about it?
Several things. The letter frequency didn't match standard English or other common languages. The lines are short. The irregular spacing between some letters was noted, and that crossed out second line, MLIAO.
What did that suggest?
Well, it suggested the writer made a mistake. either in composing the message or perhaps in transcribing it from another source. This detail, the correction, hinted at potentially clandestine communication methods where accuracy and specific protocols for errors are important.
So it wasn't just random scribbling. It looked like a genuine attempt at code.
It certainly looked like it, but what kind? Theories flew around. Was it a complex substitution or transposition cipher? Was it based on the words in the Rubaiyat itself? Was it perhaps initials for a phrase in English or another language?
Or something even more secure, like a one-time pad.
That was a strong possibility, especially given the potential Cold War context we'll get into. A one-time pad code is theoretically unbreakable without the unique corresponding key, which would have vanished with the man or his contacts. The letters themselves would be meaningless.
But why write such a potentially high-level code in faint pencil marks on the back of a poetry book? Seems flimsy.
That's the counter-argument. It seems almost too insecure for serious espionage, which leads to other theories. Maybe it wasn't a state secret, but a personalized code. Maybe initials meaningful only to him and one other person. Or maybe it was designed to look like a code, but was actually meaningless. Just another layer of deliberate obfuscation to send investigators down a rabbit hole.
A final piece of misdirection.
Possibly. The fact remains, despite decades of effort by cryptographers, both amateur and professional, the code remains effectively undeciphered. It's one of the most enduring parts of the mystery.
Okay, so we have the cipher, the untraceable substance.
Yeah.
It's no wonder the investigation started leaning towards espionage, especially given the time.
Absolutely. You have to remember the context. 1949 Australia. The Cold War is heating up. Fear of Soviet influence is rampant. Australia had just formally established its own security intelligence organization, ASIO, that very year, partly in response to these fears.
And Adelaide wasn't just any city, was it? There was something sensitive nearby.
Critically sensitive. Just a few hundred miles north was the Woomera rocket range, a top-secret joint UK-Australian project, testing missiles, atomic research links. It was hugely important and highly guarded.
So the idea of an unidentified man, possibly poisoned, with erased identity and a coded message, turning up relatively close to Woomera.
It screamed spy to the authorities. Was he an enemy agent trying to infiltrate? Was he one of their own agents he'd been compromised and silenced? The methods seemed to fit.
How so?
The meticulous identity removal, the potentially sophisticated undetectable poison, these were hallmarks of intelligence operations that were starting to become public knowledge through defectors from Soviet networks, like Igor Guzenko in Canada a few years earlier. It fit a pattern.
But let's go back to the man's physical description.
Right.
Did that fit the typical image of a spy?
That's where it gets tricky again. The physical paradox. He had that disciplined, athletic build, broad shoulders, narrow waist, and those very distinct muscular calves.
Right. The doctor suggested that could be from marching or dancing.
Yes, which is an interesting alternative. It suggested intense, possibly specialized physical conditioning, but then you have those hands.
Smooth, manicured, no calluses.
Exactly. Not the hands of someone doing rough field work or heavy physical tasks. So if he was military, maybe a specialist. If intelligence, perhaps someone in a technical role, a radio operator, a cryptographer, an analyst, an instrument maker. Someone needing precision, not brute force.
It defies easy labels. Disciplined body, refined hands.
It really does. It suggests someone trained, perhaps rigorously, but not for conventional combat or labor.
Amidst all this cloak and dagger speculation, though, there was one thread that pulled the story back towards something potentially more personal, a human connection.
Jessica Thompson. Yes, this came from the book again. On the back cover, near the cipher, investigators found faint indentations that revealed a phone number.
And they traced it?
They did. It belonged to a young woman, a nurse, living in Glenelg, which is right next door to Somerton Beach where the man was found. Her name was Jessica Thompson, though she was often known as Jo.
So police interviewed her. What did she say?
Her interview is one of the most debated parts of the case. She initially denied knowing the man or having any connection to him.
But the police weren't entirely convinced.
Sources suggest they found her reaction telling. When they showed her the plaster cast bust of the Somerton man's head and shoulders, she reportedly seemed very agitated, even distressed. Some accounts say she looked as if she was about to faint and avoided looking directly at the cast.
Did she offer any explanation for her number being in that book?
She did have an explanation, of sorts. She admitted she had owned a copy of the Rubaiyat. She claimed she'd given it as a gift years earlier during the war to an army lieutenant she knew named Alfred Boxall.
Okay, so maybe the book found in the car was Boxall's, and the Somerton man somehow got hold of it.
That was the theory for a while. But police tracked down Alfred Boxall. He was alive and well, living in Sydney. And crucially,
He still had his copy of the Rubaiyat.
yes, the copy Jessica Thompson had given him, complete with her inscription. And its last page, Tamám Shud, was intact.
So her explanation didn't hold up. The book found near Somerton, the one linked to the dead man, was not the one she gave Boxall.
Correct. This left her connection to the Somerton man shrouded in mystery. Why was her number in his book? Why did she react so strongly to the cast?
It created two competing narratives, didn't it? Espionage versus something personal.
Exactly. Suddenly, the case could be interpreted in two vastly different ways. Theory 1, heartbreak. Maybe the Somerton man was romantically linked to Jessica Thompson. Perhaps she rejected him. And Tamám Shud was his dramatic final statement of despair before taking his own life. The identity erasure, in this view, might have been to protect her reputation.
Plausible, given the poetry and the potential distress. But theory 2.
Theory 2, espionage contact. If the man was an operative, maybe Thompson was a former contact, perhaps from wartime intelligence networks who he was trying to reach in desperation. Maybe she was trying to live a normal life and his appearance terrified her. Her denial and agitation could stem from fear of exposure, not lost love.
So the police were stuck between a potential personal tragedy and a potential national security incident.
Precisely. And with Thompson sticking to her story and no other leads panning out, the official investigation essentially reached a dead end. The mystery was locked in this duality.
And so for decades, that's where it stayed. The Somerton man case became this legendary Australian enigma, passed down, debated.
It really entered folklore. Amateur investigators, authors, documentary makers kept digging, proposing theories, trying to crack the code, trying to find some link that the original police missed. It refused to fade away.
Until modern science offered a potential new path.
Yes. Fast forward to the 21st century and the rise of forensic DNA analysis and genetic genealogy. Professor Derek Abbott at the University of Adelaide became a key figure here. He approached it almost like an engineering problem, combined with a deep curiosity.
His goal was to get a DNA profile right.
Exactly, to use techniques unimaginable in 1948 to finally give the man his name back. But that meant tackling a huge challenge.
Exhuming the body.
Exhuming a body that had been embalmed and buried for over 70 years. It took years of campaigning, navigating legal and ethical hurdles. Permission was finally granted in 2021.
But getting DNA from a body that old and embalmed, that can't have been easy.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Embalming fluid, especially formalin used back then, does preserve tissues, but it also severely damages DNA. It causes chemical crosslinks, breaks the strands. Basically, it shreds the genetic information.
So where did they get usable DNA from?
The breakthrough actually came not directly from the exhumed remains initially, but from hairs that had become embedded in the original plaster cast made back in 1949. Those hairs were less exposed to the embalming chemicals.
Ingenious.
Very. Using highly specialized sequencing techniques, they managed to extract enough mitochondrial DNA first, and then enough nuclear DNA fragments to build a workable genetic profile.
And then they used genetic genealogy.
Right. They uploaded this profile to large genealogical databases looking for distant relatives. By finding matches, building family trees forwards and backwards, they could eventually pinpoint the likely identity of the unknown man.
And in July 2022, they announced it.
After 73 years of silence, the Somerton man had a name, Charles Webb.
Carl Webb, born when, where? What did he do?
Born in 1905 in Footscray, a suburb of Melbourne, records showed he was an electrical engineer and an instrument maker.
An instrument maker. That fits with the refined hands, doesn't it?
It certainly could. Precision work. It provides a potential explanation for that particular paradox.
So, case closed. The mystery solved.
Well, yes and no. They solved the who. But knowing his name, Carl Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne, actually made the why even more baffling in some ways.
How so? What did they find out about his life?
They found out he was the youngest of 6 siblings. He had married Dorothy Robertson, known as Doff, in 1941, but the marriage didn't last.
They separated.
Yes, records suggest they separated around April 1947. Dorothy moved to Butte, a town in South Australia quite some distance from Adelaide. Carl Webb seems to have stayed in Melbourne initially.
So, one theory is he traveled the 450 miles or so from Melbourne to Adelaide looking for her.
That's a plausible reason for him being in Adelaide, trying to find his estranged wife. But does that explain everything else?
You mean the extreme measures? The erased identity, the code, the untraceable poison? That doesn't sound like a man just looking for his wife.
Exactly. It seems wildly disproportionate. Why would an electrical engineer, even one in personal distress, go to such elaborate lengths using methods that look like spycraft just because he was traveling interstate to potentially reconcile?
So we have to look at all the clues again, but now through the lens of Carl Webb, instrument maker. Do the erased labels make sense?
Not easily, unless he was hiding from something more than just anonymity. Maybe creditors, maybe someone connected to the separation. It still feels extreme.
What about the items in the suitcase? The stencil brush, the modified knife?
The knife. Well, as an instrument maker, maybe he modified tools for specific technical purposes. That's conceivable. The stencil brush is harder to place, unless he had some link to trade, shipping, or maybe wartime logistics work we don't know about. It still feels a bit out of place.
And the biggest issues, the cipher and the poison. How do they fit with Carl Webb?
They really don't fit comfortably with the ordinary man narrative. The poison especially, unless Webb had unusual access to or knowledge of sophisticated chemistry far beyond a typical electrical engineer, the undetectable nature suggests either professional involvement in his demise or a level of personal expertise that's unaccounted for.
So either someone skilled administered it to him.
Suggesting he was involved in something dangerous, maybe related to his work, maybe something else entirely that led to him being silenced, or
He administered it himself, but somehow had access to this exotic substance and knowledge.
which is also hard to explain based on what we know of Carl Webb. And the cipher. Again, why would an instrument maker use what looks like a complex code? Unless it was deeply personal, maybe initials known only to him and Dorothy, or him and Jessica Thompson, it remains stubbornly opaque.
Speaking of Jessica Thompson, did the DNA reveal anything more about her connection to Webb?
The DNA work did add another layer there. Initial hopes were that it might show she was a close relative or perhaps the mother of his child, which some had speculated. That wasn't the case.
No close genetic link?
No direct parent-child or sibling link found. However, the genetic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick, who worked with Derek Abbott, did find evidence suggesting a possible distant connection. Webb had a brother-in-law named Thomas Keene. It turns out Jessica Thompson's husband, Prosper Thompson, also had links suggesting they might have moved in similar circles, or there might be a much more distant shared ancestor connecting the Webb-Keene families and the family Jessica came from.
So not strangers necessarily, but not immediate family either. Their worlds might have overlapped somehow.
Possibly. It suggests they weren't total strangers, reinforcing the idea that Webb might have had a reason to seek her out in Adelaide. But the exact nature of their relationship, was she a former lover, a desperate last contact, just someone whose number he happened to have? That remains completely unknown. The name didn't unlock that secret.
So here we are. After 73 years, we have a name, Carl Webb, an identity. But the core mystery, the why of it all, feels almost deeper now.
It's a fascinating outcome, isn't it? We have the forensic success story, identifying him through incredible science. But that identification clashes so strongly with the bizarre cloak and dagger circumstances of his death. It forces us to confront the limits of what forensics can tell us.
It gives us facts, but not motive. Not the human story behind those facts.
Precisely. The case is a perfect example of how science can peel back layers of anonymity, only to reveal a more profound mystery about human behavior, desperation, and secrets.
And the symbolism of that phrase, Tamám Shud.
It's incredibly potent, meant to signify the end. Yet it became the starting point for this decades-long global quest for answers. A quest that, even with a name, still feels fundamentally unfinished.
Because Carl Webb, the electrical engineer, took his story with him. Or someone ensured it vanished with him. The methods used suggest such a powerful need for silence.
When someone goes to such extreme lengths to erase themselves, to remove every trace of their past from their final moments, it creates a vacuum. And human nature, investigators, the public, we rush to fill that vacuum with theories, espionage, lost love, hidden lives, because the silence itself is so compelling.
So the final question lingers, doesn't it? Even knowing he was Carl Webb, what secret was so important, so dangerous, or so devastating that it drove him or someone else to orchestrate this perfectly erased, coded, and chemically silenced end on Somerton Beach, 450 miles from his home?
That's the riddle that endures. What did Carl Webb carry with him that demanded such absolute finality? After all this time and all the science, that question hangs heavier than ever.